Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to first go over a few problems from last night's homework that I think were a little more difficult. So the first couple, you would just distribute, like number 8, you would just distribute the 2a to the trinomial and then the -9 to the trinomial. Number 10, you would distribute all three of these, like you would start by distributing the x squared to all three of these, then the -4x to all three, and so forth. But let's start with number 34. The rectangle is 4x plus 1, and then the bottom here would be, if you add these two, would be 7x minus 3. So I FOILed those and gave me this. The triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. Now the height here is the 4x plus 1. It's the same as this side here. So you can see the area of the triangle. And then the area of the shaded part, you would just subtract the rectangle minus the triangle. You would distribute. I didn't show every last step. The answer is here, but you would distribute and combine your like terms. For number 50, let me just focus on 50 for a second. You would first realize that since this is 8 from here to here, and we're adding another x here, that's 8 plus 1x. We're adding another x here, that's 8 plus x plus x. It's really 8 plus 2x. Same thing going up and down. It's 10 plus an x here plus an x here, which is 10 plus 2x to go from here to here, like we did yesterday. So the area of that entire thing would just be the 10 plus 2x times the 8 plus 2x. But we usually write things, instead of writing it that way, I'm just going to flip these around and make it 2x plus 10 times the quantity 2x plus 8, and then I can FOIL there. And the last one I have, number 52. I want the area of the shaded part. So I'm going to do the whole minus the white would give me the shaded. So the whole is 8 plus x by x plus 5. The white would be the x plus 2 times the x minus 3. But now the key is when I subtract on all of these, just like on this one, I have to put parentheses after the subtraction because I have to distribute that negative to each part inside that grouping. Same thing here. My area would be the first foiling minus the second. Now this is what makes this problem a little bit more difficult. I have to keep the subtraction outside of the parentheses. This is what I get when I FOIL these two. Then I have to distribute this negative to all three, and that gives me the plus here and the plus here. I plugged in the 214, that's the area, and then I can just solve that equation. All right, what we're going to do today should seem relatively easy. Just make sure, yeah. But you just have to be careful. So section 8.4 is called special products. If I go too fast, you can always just pause if I'm not giving you enough time to write. But make sure you are writing, as I keep saying. If you're just watching, you're not learning as much. Make sure you're taking notes, just like if I was here. So if I ask you to find this product, go ahead and write that down. The students at Holland are just going to square each term and get x squared plus 49. And that's wrong. Okay, that's really, really wrong. That's only what the students at Holland and the Chamonix and those bad schools do. I'm just kidding. Sorry if you have a parent that teaches at the Chamonix. What does it mean to square something? Well, we know 5 squared means 5 times 5. If we have a monomial, like if I have in the previous chapter, like 2x to the third squared, we learned that I can just square each part. So 2 squared is 4. I would multiply these exponents and get x to the 6th. But this is not a monomial. This is 2 terms. So if I have 2 terms, let me erase this. I can't just do like where I square each part. I have to use what we learned in elementary school. So to square something means to write it twice. So this really means the quantity of x plus 7 times the quantity of x plus 7. And then I just FOIL. So the finishing, I'm going to go quickly through this. It's just x squared plus 7x plus another 7x plus 49 gives me x squared plus 14x plus 49. So as long as I know to write it twice, it's a really easy concept. So number 2, again, the students at Holland are just going to square this. They're going to square this. And this is completely wrong. we're going to do it the right way. We're going to write it twice. And then I just FOIL. So 3x times 3x gives me 9x squared. 3x times this gives me negative 15xy. This gives me negative 15xy. I'm going to write them alphabetically so that I can see that they're like terms. If I write them in any order I want, I won't recognize these two as like terms. Plus 25y squared. So that gives me 9x squared minus 30xy plus 25y squared. Easy stuff as long as you know to write it twice. But once you start doing this enough, you're going to say, well, do I have to keep writing it twice? And like I see that I really just get the same thing in the middle twice. I get two of these, and I get two of the same thing here. So there is a formula that you can use to go a little quicker. So I'll give you a minute to write these down. Again, if I go too quick, you can just pause the video. So this is what we just said. On the first one, you wind up with two of the same thing in the middle. And you get two of the same thing in the middle. But let's just go back and compare in both cases, whether this is minus or plus, the last term is positive because it comes from multiplying a 7 times a 7 or a negative 5y times negative 5y. So the last term is always negative. But the middle is what, if you're adding two negatives, you still stay negative. So really, all you have to do is square the first. I like to do the last part then, and I square the last part, just like the people at Holland do. But the people at Holland forget to do the middle. So all I have to do is multiply these two together. It's sort of like the outers and the inners, and then I just double it. Now, I don't really purposely like to bash the Holland people, but they beat us in football, so I have to bash them. But they honestly do it the right way, of course. But all right, so let's use the formula to do number 3. I'll give you a second to write that. So the formula says, okay, I'm just going to square the first term. I'm going to square the last term. I'm going to write this over here. I know it's always plus. Now, you can just do the 2 squared in your head. I'm just going to write what's happening. And then the middle, if this is minus, it's going to be minus 2 of the same thing. So I'm going to have 2 times these two things. So this would be like the outers and inners. So it's 2 times 4a times 2. So this gives me 16a squared minus 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16a plus 4. Now, if you don't like this method, that's perfectly fine. Just write it twice and FOIL, and that's perfectly acceptable. But let's try this using the formula. I'll give you a second. Go ahead and try that using the formula. So this gives me 2c squared. I do the last plus 3d squared plus, because this is plus here, 2 of the same thing. And those 2 of the same thing are 2c and 3d. And then I just square this. Plus 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. CD, again, write that alphabetical. And then plus 9d squared. Again, if you don't like using the formula, no penalty at all. Just write it twice and FOIL. All right, the next concept is the easiest one today. You probably remember this from last chapter when we did square roots. These are called, hopefully you remember, conjugates. So with conjugates, I can square, if I FOIL here, I get x squared plus 3x minus 3x minus 9. Again, I'm just FOILing. But these two are always going to give me opposites. So in the last chapter, we learned that all I have to do if I recognize them as conjugates is the F and the L. Conjugates, again, are identical, except I have one that's subtraction and one that's addition. It doesn't matter the order. So go ahead and multiply those. Again, all I have to do is I recognize that they're conjugates. I do the first and the last. So 16a squared minus 9b squared. Told you these were your favorite, would be your favorite. All right, so the formula for this is really, this is just the first and the last. So again, if I have conjugates here, one is addition, one is subtraction. All I have to do is just the first and the last, and it's always minus because it's always one positive times one negative. All right, almost finished. Number 7. So here I have 3 things to multiply. Well, which 2 should I pick first? Well, if I were to distribute here first, that's going to give, don't write this, x squared minus 8x, and then I'd have to multiply that times this. I've just made an easier problem more difficult. So anytime there's foiling involved in something with 3 factors, 3 parts, I'm always going to do the foiling first. I would rather do the more difficult part with easier numbers, and then the last thing is just going to be the distributing. So I have the x. These are conjugates, so I just do the first. X times x is x squared. Negative 8 times positive 8 gives me minus 64. Again, these are conjugates, so I just do the first and the last. And then I just distribute the x. Again, I'm really adding my exponent, so x cubed minus 64x, and that is my answer. Go ahead and try this. Remember, be careful. This is not these are not conjugates. This is what we did at the beginning of the lesson. So I'm going to write this twice. When I write it twice, that means I'm writing the exact same thing. It's easier to FOIL first and then distribute at the end. So I'll have 4k times this quantity. Now, again, I can either use the formula or just FOIL, whatever you would prefer. Again, I'll just FOIL twice. I'll just FOIL here, so that would give me 25k squared plus 15k plus another 15k plus 9. Oh, that's so the more you do this, you'll start to see where that 2 comes from. Oh, so I have 2 of the same thing. So sometimes you'll pick it up real quickly, and sometimes if you do it a few times like this, you'll see where the formula comes from. So I'll combine my like terms. Now I'll distribute. Again, this is a 1, so I just add my exponents. So I get 100 k to the third plus 120. Again, this has a first power also. K to the second plus 36k. If you're confused on any parts, you can go back to that part of the video as you're doing your homework. And, oh, sorry, one more. I forgot about that one. So this one, I do the same thing, but go ahead, try this one on your own. So this one, I would not recommend using the formula when you have a more complicated problem with exponents and so forth. So this one, I'm just going to use FOIL. So it's 2, and then 3x squared times 3x squared gives me 9x to the fourth. 3x squared times the negative 5y cubed gives me a negative 15. X squared y cubed minus another 15. I'm going to write it in the same order. X squared y cubed plus 25y to the 6th power. Distribute the 2. Let's combine our like terms first. So this would be 30. Again, when you add or subtract, they have to be like terms. We don't change our exponents. And distribute gives me 18x to the fourth minus 60 x squared y to the third plus 50 y to the sixth. All right, so your homework is the worksheet. The answers will be posted as well. Have a great weekend.